Does Donald Trump? Do you think that today Donald Trump knows that he lost the election?
Absolutely.
So I don't actually. I think
But
that,
when so I'm glad that you have the attorney background. When we are assessing mens rea, when we're looking at certain criminal statutes where intent is required, it's a reasonable person standard, right? Like, would a reasonable person have known that they were?
No, it depends on the mens rea standard. So it's not the same in every case. If you have to establish individual intent, then it's not enough to say a reasonable person should have known. That would be enough for a negligence statute.
In this video, Destiny joins Ben Shapiro on the Lex Friedman podcast. Destiny and Ben Shapiro debate January 6th and Donald Trump's refusal to concede the 2020 election. With that, let's watch Ben Shapiro destroy our favorite narcissist, Destiny.
One of the big issues in this presidential election is going to be January 6th. It's in the news now, and I think it's going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. So, question for Destiny first. Did Donald Trump incite an insurrection on January 6th, 2021?
Absolutely. This is probably ignoring every other issue we've talked about, of which I think there are plenty that I would say disqualify Trump from holding office. I think that the conduct and the behavior leading up to and including January 6th, I think is wildly indefensible. I am excited to see Ben try to, the 3 to 4 stages are the taking what I think any reasonable person would say, knowingly false information about elections being rigged or ballot boxes being stuffed or Ruby Freeman, running ballots 3 times in Georgia, taking that knowingly false information and trying to call state secretaries and stuff to have them flip their electoral vote. That was horrible. The plot that Eastman hatched in order to have these like false slates of electors where all 7 states had citizens go in and falsely say that they were the duly elected electors that could submit votes to Congress. That was insane. That happened. Asking or begging Pence to accept these false states of electors initially and then just say you should just throw it out completely and throw it to the House delegation, which was majority Republican. That was absolutely unbelievable. And then on the day of January 6th, trying to capitalize on the violence by him, Giuliani, and Eastman making phone calls to senators and congressmen saying, well, don't you think maybe you guys should delay the vote a little bit? Don't you think they're just really mad about the election? I think he said to McCarthy, they're more upset than you. And his utter dereliction of duty in not doing anything to stop the rioting that happened on January 6th because he was too busy taking advantage of it. I think all of these things are horrible. I look forward to seeing the Jack Smith indictments play out in court, maybe even the Georgia RICO case. But I think all of these things are unfathomable. And I think when you look at the plot from start to finish, clearly the goal the entire time was to circumvent the peaceful transfer of power. That was the goal from start to finish, whether it was through false claims, whether it was through illegal schemes, or whether it was through violence at the Capitol to delay the certification of the vote.
Ben?
So I'm glad you're excited.
None of what Destiny just said is evidence that Donald Trump incited January 6th, which he obviously didn't. Destiny disagrees. I think one of the first things he said was he absolutely incited January 6th by his conduct leading up to January 6th. He says that Donald Trump was dispersing knowingly false information. First of all, I don't think Donald Trump believes for 1 minute that anything he was saying was incorrect or false. And to suggest there was no evidence whatsoever that there was tampering with the election is insane. There are countless videos of it happening all over the country. I just don't think that there was enough evidence to definitively say it affected the outcome of the election. And let's not forget, 81 million votes for Biden. I know he was a really dynamic candidate, but come on. False slates of electors? You know what? I hate to do this. I hate to, but I have not found any way that I can defend Trump and his team on this. I think it was wrong. I can't defend it, but it still wasn't a reason that Trump was responsible for January 6th. Nothing to do with it. It was an action that I think was wrong, but it didn't cause an insurrection. Also, let's not forget, FBI informants on the ground at the time, in real time, reported that this was not a pre-planned, coordinated effort to overturn the election. All of the things he said, and that hopefully I covered all of them, are examples of wrongdoing and evidence that the president didn't think he lost the election, but they're not close to evidence that he incited anything on January 6th. And as we all know, he specifically told people, we are the party of law and order, go peacefully. So Anyway, let's get back to the video.
It is always fun. So there are two elements to incitement of insurrection. One is incitement, the other is insurrection. So incitement has a legal standard. So does insurrection. Neither of those standards are met. So if you're asking me, morally speaking, did Donald Trump do the right thing between November 4th and January 6th? I said, I will continue to say, no, he did not. I think he was saying things that are false, with just factually false about his theories with regard to the election, about the election being stolen, about fraud. This was all adjudicated in court. He did not even bring many of the claims that he has brought publicly and all the rest of that. If we're talking about incitement of insurrection as a legal standard, it doesn't meet any of those standards. When it comes to incitement, it has to be incitement to immediate lawless action. That's the standard for incitement. And I'm very meticulous in how I use this because I happen to speak publicly a lot, and that means there are lots of people who listen to me, which means some of those people are probably crazy. And some of them may go and do a crazy thing. Did I incite them? The media tend to use the word incitement very loosely with regard to this sort of stuff, in the same way that Bernie Sanders, quote unquote, incited the congressional baseball shooting. He did not. Bernie Sanders has a lot of things I disagree with. I think Bernie's a schmuck. Doesn't matter. He did not incite that. So saying bad things is not the same thing as inciting violence. Inciting violence, the legal standard in the United States is, I want you to go punch that guy in the face. That's inciting. With regard to insurrection, typically in insurrection, and there are some descriptions in case law, though none in statutory law, as far as I'm aware, the typical description in case law is the replacement of one legitimate government of the United States with another by violent means. The notion that Donald Trump coordinated any such insurrection is belied by the FBI itself. The FBI put out a report in, I believe it was August of 2021, suggesting that there was no well-coordinated insurrectionist attempt coordinated by the White House. In fact, what you had was Donald Trump thrashing around like that weird alien in the movie Life. I don't know if you ever saw it with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he's like kind of thrashing up against this glass box, just an alien just thrashing up against the glass box. That I think is more what you were seeing from November 4th to January 6th. And then again, the claim that January 6th itself was an insurrection. So virtually, I'm not aware that anyone was charged with actual insurrection. There were some people who were charged with seditious conspiracy. There are insurrection statutes that do exist. No one was charged under those particular statutes. There were some people who you could say informally had insurrectionist ideas. Those would be the people who wanted to hang Nancy Pelosi or kill Mike Pence. And those people are in jail right now. And the election went forward. The election was certified. Mike Pence presided over the certification. Mitch McConnell presided over the certification. Joe Biden has been the president for the last 3 years. So Donald Trump, by the way, was still president at that point. If he had actively wanted to do what other people who have actually launched coups have done, he would have theoretically called the National Guard not to put down the riot, but to actually depose the sitting government of the United States in the name of a specious legal theory. He did not do that. He did not attempt that. Nobody working for him did that. The most you can say, I think, about what everybody was doing is that, and I want to say,
if you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
We can talk about Trump because this is really about Trump. He used a phrase that Trump was disseminating knowingly false information. The word that's carrying a lot of weight there is the word knowingly. So knowingly implies a knower. Do I think the information he was disseminating was false? Yes. Do I think that Donald Trump has a unique capacity to convince himself of nearly anything that is to his own benefit? Absolutely. And I think that that's actually what Donald Trump was doing there. And the evidence of that is Donald Trump being a human and all of us watching him for the last several years. So, the idea that he knew it to be false, I'm not even sure those standards apply in any, and just assessing him as a human, which is really what we're being asked to do because there's an intent element to this crime. Do you think that today Donald Trump knows that he lost the election?
Absolutely.
So I don't actually. I think
but so I'm glad that you have the attorney background. When we are assessing mens rea, when we're looking at certain criminal statutes where intent is required, it's a reasonable person standard, right? Like would a reasonable person have known that they were?
No, it depends on the mens rea standard. So it's not the same in every case. If you have to establish individual intent, then it's not enough to say a reasonable person should have known. That would be enough for a negligence statute.
This is so great because Destiny always thinks he is the smartest person in the room. And he's well read. He reads up on what he's talking about. But now that he's talking to someone with an actual legal background, he thinks he can throw out legal terms and legal definitions. And it exposes what an idiot he is. Because a lot of other people that he debates don't have legal backgrounds, so they just kind of accept what he says about a legal term or a crime. But I love that he thought he really had Ben in a gotcha there. And Ben was like, no. If this was a coordinated insurrection in one of the, if not the most armed country in the world, do you think that plan would include no firearms whatsoever? I don't think so. Like Ben said, no one was charged with insurrection. I 100% think that Donald Trump believed and still believes that the election was stolen. And there's zero evidence, whether he's right or wrong, that Donald Trump does not wholeheartedly believe it. I can say conclusively that I don't know if the 2020 election was stolen based on the evidence I've seen. I have suspicions, and I think it's a possibility just based on what I know. But I haven't had the left, the media, members of my own party constantly spreading lies about me for close to 10 years and trying to throw me in jail for years for a bunch of bullshit. So if there's one person in the world that you can kind of understand why they'd be paranoid, I think it's Donald Trump. Anyway, let's wrap up the video.
Usually,
Sure,
when
but
you're
for-
talking about reasonable person statutes, just legally speaking,
Mhm.
a reasonable person statute is should a reasonable person have known? That's when you get to like manslaughter. You
Sure.
can't do a reasonable person standard on like first degree murder.
So
You have
for
to establish actual motive in first degree murder.
But for first degree murder, you don't need the statement of I plan to kill this person or I intend to kill this person. We can
No.
prove that state of mind.
You
using
need
a ton of
you
other
need
circumstantial evidence. right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. You could prove it.
So I feel like my feeling for Donald Trump was there were all these people around him that he trusted to investigate election fraud. He trusted Barr and the DOJ. He asked Pence, his vice president, to look into it. He asked his chief of staff. He asked his legal counsel. He has so many people that ostensibly he trusts them if he's asking them to look into it. And when all of them looked into it and reported back to him, no, we found nothing. Unless we're going to literally make the concession that Trump might actually be a delusional psycho man, at that point, should he not have realized, like, well, okay, maybe there's
Listen, I
nothing.
think he should have realized the day of the election that he lost the election, but that's not. But that's
Sure, but I'm
not
just
the
asking,
question.
I'm saying that, like, at that point, should he not have known that for him to go and propagate those claims that he'd asked all of the people he trusted to research, and then for him to take those claims to Michigan and to Georgia, and then publicly and to try to convince people to throw out the election, you don't think that?
But you're doing the same thing. You're reverting to should a reasonable person have known? Yes, a reasonable person should have known. Did Donald Trump know? That's a different question. And so conflating those two questions is going to get you into some messy territory. By the way, this is why Jack Smith charged the way Jack Smith charged.
Yeah, which
Right?
wasn't
Jack
within
Smith did
sight.
not charge conspiracy. Jack Smith did not charge insurrection. He did not charge seditious conspiracy. Right? If the
But I
reason is
think for
because
Jack Smith, though, I
Jack
think-
Smith is a good lawyer. What he's doing is he's actually broadly, I would say, pretty obviously expanding statutory coverage.
Destiny is trying to compare liability for murder to liability for inciting an insurrection by the President of the United States. Maybe just chill with the legal arguments a little bit. It's making you look super dumb, Destiny. But we want to hear from you. What do you all think about this debate between Ben Shapiro and Destiny? Let us know. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.